I never thought a simple birthday dinner would be the moment everything I believed about friendship would shatter into 1,000 pieces. The restaurant was perfect, soft lighting, the gentle clinking of glasses, and the rich aroma of Italian cuisine filling the air. My best friend Megan had organized everything, insisting it was time to celebrate my promotion properly. 33 is going to be your year, Claire, she had said with that familiar warmth in her voice that had made me trust her for the past 15 years. Should have known it was all a carefully constructed facade. For nearly a decade, I'd been the reliable one in our friend group, the one who dropped everything when someone needed help. When Megan lost her job 3 years ago, I covered her portion of the rent in our shared apartment without hesitation. When Ryan, her boyfriend, needed seed money for his tech startup, I became his first investor, putting in $30,000 from my savings. When Zoe, our other roommate, couldn't afford her graduate school application fees and first semester's tuition, I fronted the money, telling her to pay me back whenever she could. I never kept tabs. These were my people, the family I had chosen after moving across the country to Seattle, leaving my biological family behind in Boston. We had promised to support each other through everything. That night at the restaurant, everyone was there, Megan with her perfectly curled auburn hair, Ryan with his charismatic smile, Zoe fidgeting with her wine glass, and a few other friends from our extended circle. I arrived late, having rushed from an important client meeting. The guest of honor finally arrives. Ryan called out, raising his glass. Everyone cheered. I felt a rush of gratitude as I sat down, looking at these people who had been my support system for so long. But that warmth evaporated just 20 minutes into dinner when Megan clinked her fork against her glass. So, Claire, she began, her voice eerily composed. We wanted to tell you tonight since we're all together. I remember setting down my fork, a strange uneasiness settling in my stomach. Ryan and I are buying that house in Fremont, she continued. The one with the rooftop deck overlooking the canal. I blinked, confused. The house they'd been eyeing was over $1 million. Last I knew, they were nowhere near affording something like that. That's amazing, I said carefully. How did you manage to pull that together? Ryan cleared his throat. Well, my company got acquired last week. I didn't want to say anything until it was finalized, but yeah, we got a pretty decent payout. Your company? I echoed, my voice suddenly dry. The one I invested in? The table fell silent. Ryan avoided my eyes, suddenly very interested in his plate. About that, Megan interjected smoothly. We were going to talk to you. Obviously, you'll get something. But most of the money is going toward the house and, well, starting our family. I stared at her, disbelief rising in my chest. What do you mean something? I was your first investor, Ryan. We had an agreement, 15% stake. Zoe shifted uncomfortably beside me. Claire, don't make a scene. This is supposed to be a celebration. I turned to look at her. Did you know about this? Her silence was answer enough. Ryan finally looked up. Look, Claire, legally it's complicated. You never signed an official contract, and when we restructured for the series of funding, your initial investment was diluted. Diluted? I repeated, barely able to believe what I was hearing. To what exactly? Megan sighed, annoyed. To about 0.5%. But hey, that's still something. I did the math quickly in my head. Their acquisition was rumored to be around $8 million. My 15% should have been $1.2 million. At 0.5%, I'd get $40,000, barely more than my initial investment after 3 years. And when were you planning to tell me this? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. We thought tonight would be good, Ryan said, his tone artificially light. You know, celebrate your promotion and share our good news too. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My promotion? The one that happened because I've been working 70-hour weeks for the past year while also helping all of you? While covering Megan's rent? While paying for Zoe's tuition? Zoe flinched. Claire, we appreciate everything you've done, but what? I interrupted. But now that Ryan and Megan have hit it big, suddenly all those promises don't matter anymore? Megan's face hardened. You always do this, Claire. You keep score. Friendship isn't about keeping tabs. I stared at her, unable to believe the audacity. Keeping tabs? I've never once asked any of you to pay me back for anything. But this isn't about small favors, this is about honoring commitments. This is about basic respect. Ryan leaned forward, his voice suddenly patronizing. Claire, you're overreacting. You have a great job, a stable life. We're just starting out. We need this more than you do. Those words hit me like a slap. I'd heard them before, from my parents when they'd given my college fund to my younger brother because he needed it more. The same brother who now lived in my parents' guest house, still finding himself at 31, spent my entire life being the responsible one, only to be punished for it. Need it more? I echoed, feeling my hands begin to shake. I put off buying my own place to help all of you. I skipped vacations, worked overtime, lived on ramen for months so I could lend Zoe tuition money. And now you're buying a $1 million house while I'm still renting? Megan rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you're struggling. I looked around the table, at these people I had considered my chosen family, and saw nothing but entitlement and dismissal in their eyes. They didn't see me as a friend. They saw me as an ATM with a convenient shoulder to cry on, placed my napkin on the table and stood up. I think I'm done here. Claire, come on, Ryan called after me. Don't ruin the night. I turned back, meeting his gaze. The night was ruined the moment you decided I wasn't worth honoring your promises to. I walked out of that restaurant feeling like I couldn't breathe. The cool Seattle air hit my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk, tears threatening to spill. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan, "You're acting like a child. We can talk when you've calmed down." I blocked her number right there on the sidewalk. When I got home to our shared apartment, I went straight to my room and pulled out my laptop. I had 3 years of bank statements, text messages, and email exchanges documenting everything: the investment agreement with Ryan, the rent payments I'd covered for Megan, the tuition money for Zoe. I'd never thought I'd need these records, but some part of me had always been careful. By morning, I had drafted 3 separate emails. One to Ryan's business partners detailing my initial investment with screenshots of our agreement. One to our landlord giving my 30-day notice. And one to a lawyer friend asking for a consultation. The responses came quicker than I expected. Ryan's business partner was shocked. Apparently, Ryan had never mentioned my investment to the new owners. The landlord was understanding. And my lawyer friend was available to meet that afternoon. Spent the next few weeks in a whirlwind of legal consultations and apartment hunting. I found a small studio apartment closer to my office, nowhere near as nice as the place I shared with Megan and Zoe, but it was mine. I hired a moving company and scheduled them for a day I knew everyone would be out. It wasn't until I was halfway moved out that Megan finally confronted me. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded, standing in the doorway of my half-empty room. I continued packing books into a box, not bothering to look up. Moving out. I thought that was obvious. Over one stupid disagreement? Claire, this is ridiculous. I finally looked at her. This isn't a disagreement, Megan. This is betrayal. Betrayal, she scoffed. God, you're so melodramatic. Ryan's company is being investigated now, did you know that? I kept my voice even. Apparently, hiding an original investor from acquisition paperwork is securities fraud. The color drained from her face. You're destroying his career over this? No, I said calmly. He destroyed his own career when he decided to cheat me. I'm just refusing to be a victim. We were going to make it right, she protested weakly. When? After you bought the house? After you'd spent all the money? Face it, Megan. You never planned to honor our agreement. You thought I'd be too nice, too accommodating, too afraid of losing my friends to stand up for myself. She crossed her arms. So what happens now? Now I move on. Ryan will probably have to pay a fine and restructure the acquisition deal to include my proper stake. You'll have to downsize your house dreams. And I'll be living somewhere where I'm not surrounded by people who see me as nothing but a resource to exploit. We never exploited you, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. I sealed the box I was packing. The fact that you believe that is exactly the problem. The next month was quiet. I settled into my new apartment, threw myself into work, and tried not to think about the people I'd left behind. The legal proceedings moved forward. Ryan's company was forced to recognize my 15% stake, though the acquisition value was adjusted down after the investigation. I still walked away with close to $900,000 after taxes and legal fees, didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Then came the messages, first from mutual friends, then from extended acquaintances. Claire, you're being unreasonable. Friends help each other out. I can't believe you'd take legal action against Ryan. That's cold. Megan is devastated. She says you abandoned her over money. They had spun a story where I was the villain, the greedy friend who couldn't be happy for others' success, who kept score and held grudges. No one mentioned the years of financial support I'd provided, the promises that had been broken, the blatant attempt to cheat me out of what was rightfully mine. I didn't engage. I didn't defend myself. I simply removed myself from group chats, declined invitations, and focused on rebuilding my life. 6 months later, I used part of my settlement money as a down payment on a small townhouse near Lake Union. Nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, just a place that was mine, that I had earned. I started taking photography classes on weekends, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for when I was too busy bailing out my friends. Traveled to Iceland, then Thailand, then Argentina. Trips I'd delayed for years while prioritizing everyone else's needs, and slowly, I built a new circle, people who valued reciprocity and respect, who understood that friendship wasn't about what they could get from me but what we could share with each other. A year after that fateful birthday dinner, I was sitting at a coffee shop when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Zoe. Claire, it began. I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to apologize. After you left, everything fell apart. The acquisition deal was renegotiated, and Ryan and Megan couldn't afford the house anymore. They blamed you, but I know now that none of this was your fault. They've been doing the same thing to me, pressuring me to use my new job connections to help Ryan rebuild his reputation, expecting me to cover more than my share of expenses because I finally got a decent paying position. She went on to explain how she'd finally seen the pattern, how she'd realized that what they had done to me was inexcusable, how she wished she had stood up for me that night instead of staying silent. I don't expect your forgiveness, she wrote. But I wanted you to know that I see it now, and I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time before writing back a simple thank you for the apology. I didn't invite her back into my life. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But her message gave me something I hadn't realized I needed: a validation that I hadn't been wrong, that the injustice I felt was real. As I sit here now, 2 years removed from that night that changed everything, I don't regret standing up for myself. Yes, I lost people I thought would be in my life forever. Yes, there were moments of intense loneliness. But I gained something far more valuable: self-respect. Sometimes the hardest lesson to learn is that loyalty should have limits. Being reliable doesn't mean being a doormat. Being generous doesn't mean allowing yourself to be exploited. I used to think that walking away from toxic friends made me cold or selfish. Now I understand it was the most important act of self-love I could have chosen. The price of blind loyalty is too high. And I'm no longer willing to pay it. What do you think about Claire's story? Have you ever had to walk away from friends who took advantage of your generosity? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real and heartfelt stories about friendship, betrayal, and finding your worth.